Yes.
As certified life coaches with 45 years combined experience in human resources, Jen Trumm and Katherine have both experienced the highest of highs and the lowest of lows, both personally and professionally. What they both know to be true is this: our mental, physical, and emotional health are the essential building blocks in order to thrive and shine in the field of HR. In a first of its kind podcast, we'll be getting real and we'll discuss and share what has contributed to both our success and struggles, with the goal of inspiring women around the globe to stand tall and take the necessary action to both thrive and shine in HR. Here are your hosts, Jen and Katherine. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Thrive and Shine HR. Jen, hi. How are you?
I've had better days.
Let's get real about it. You've had better days. So today's not your favorite.
No, not my favorite. I have a broken leg and a COVID-y husband. So we're navigating through a few bumps today, but I'm here and I'm so happy to see you. And I'm so happy to be recording another episode after taking a couple weeks off in our summer break. How are you? How has your week been? I hope it's been a little better than mine.
You know, I'm going to be super honest, and I hope this gives you hope because, and we've lived long enough to know that tomorrow's a new day. Brett, my partner, always reminds me of that. Yesterday was ugly for me. I was on a trail run with my girlfriends. I haven't seen them in forever because, as you know, and our viewers know, our listeners know, I've been traveling a lot for work. I've been really based down in Southern Colorado this year, and finally made it home. Finally met up with my girlfriends for our 6:40 a.m. weekly Wednesday run that's been going on for about 15 years. I finally show up, and there was a confusion with the time and the location, and I got triggered on my birthday. I've been dealing with a family issue since Thanksgiving, and my girlfriend said something that should not have bothered me at all. Just like, it's 6:33, where are you? Totally normal if we're like not in the same location, getting ready for a run. And I kind of lost my shit in my own head. I really did. I got really mad. I brought it. I was very proud of myself for bringing it up. And, but what happened was after she explained it, and it should have been like, yeah, no big deal, I turned it into something it totally wasn't. And I was witnessing my brain do it. And I knew what my brain was doing at the same time. I could not control how mad I was. So we reached this like halfway point in our run, and everyone's like, we have to go, we have to get to work. And I was like, I'm going running by myself. And they were like, bring it in, hug it in. I was like, I can't hug anyone right now. And I was very like sweet. You know, I'm like, listen, what I need is space. I need to go run by myself for a little bit and process. And I ran away from my friends. I sat down. I just started bawling.
Oh.
And I was like, you need a new therapist. You need to get help. The minute you get home, you're going to call, because you know when you get triggered, you just have more work to do. It wasn't anything my friend said. And I knew that. And I'm sitting there going, oh. So yeah, that was yesterday. And I got home. I made an appointment, new therapist. And
good for you. Damn.
Yes. I mean, if I'm running away from my girlfriends, who are literally my chosen family, and they are the people who have my back, if I am like not okay opening up to them and I am getting triggered by one of the people I love most, I saw it immediately. And yet I couldn't control my emotions. And I was really embarrassed, and I could feel the tears coming. And yeah, so I knew I needed some help. And I just went home, I made an appointment, and literally the minute I made the appointment, I felt better. It was right. I was like, okay, I'm doing something for myself. I called my partner, bawled my eyes out to him, felt even better. You know, as the day progressed, I felt better. And then I woke up this morning in the best mood ever. Perimenopause. I don't know what's going on. All I know is today is better, Jen. So I hope your day tomorrow is better.
Every day's a new day, right? I mean, but
Yeah.
that's amazing
Oh,
of you for getting that perspective as quickly as you did to recognize what you really needed.
yeah.
Because, as you and I have talked about so many times in the past, our past selves would have immediately found whatever justification we could to justify the anger or justify the hurt and justify blame or whatever it is. And
Oh, yeah.
instead, you took full ownership. I mean, that's huge in and of itself. That deserves
Yeah.
celebrating.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting here listening to you, just feeling so much pride because that's the shit right there. That is the shit.
It's funny. I really haven't like unpacked it the way I just did with you. And it feels really good to do that and see it that way because
Yeah,
I mean, my natural tendency and my tendency for 45 years, victim mentality.
yeah, yeah.
What a bitch. How dare she
Right.
say that to me? How can she make me feel that way? How insensitive. And immediately I was like, nope, nope. If got triggered, has nothing to do with her, has nothing to do with what she said. Because truly. And then the embarrassment kicked in a little bit. I was like, it's my girlfriends. I'm just going to, we've got our running text. And I was like, I own it all day long. That was 100% me. And I'm getting help. And of
Mm.
course, the support just
Oh,
flooded, just the
yeah.
phone was blowing up in such a lovely way as our trusted girlfriends do. So yeah, thanks for listening to that. I feel like going back to when we started talking about putting this podcast together, it's all about our emotional and our mental and our physical health. And
Mhm.
I want you to know, like I always open up to you. And sometimes I do it before we actually go live or before we start recording. And if we're really going to help our listeners, I want to be super real. So that definitely feeling a little vulnerable right now, knowing that that's out there in the world and it feels good all at the same time. So thank
Yeah.
you.
Well, don't you worry. We'll be getting vulnerable more today, I'm sure.
We
So
will.
we'll level this playing field. No
Oh
problem.
yeah. Oh yeah. Okay, so episode 26. I
Woo.
love it. I love it. Developing healthy HR habits that stick, including the habit of saying no. Woo, this is going to be a good one. Jen, let's just go ahead and dive in. I took up so much time. I want you to just take 25 minutes with question one. So, Jen, what, what do you think that we have a tendency to do wrong when it comes to developing healthy habits? What do we get wrong?
Oh my gosh. I I've thought a bit about this question quite a bit when
Yeah.
you had sent it over, and I think for me, it comes down to a lack of full belief in myself. And when I don't fully believe in myself
Mm.
and my capabilities, my potential, my competence, whatever, then that's where everything comes in, where I'm not disciplined and I'm,
Mhm.
I'm, stuck in a lot of self-sabotaging behaviors and, a lot of negative thought loops, all of that, right? But it all comes down to like this core about whether or not I really like believe in myself and not what I should be or what others think it should be, but rather like truly what
Mm.
is me. And that has been a really, really bumpy, hard road and one that I'm still working on so
Oh,
much.
yeah.
A lot of it has to do with pride that we talk about therapy, and that's something I'm doing much more than I ever have before over these last, couple years for me. And I'm so grateful for that because it's really in the recognition of where the ego comes in. And, like the situation that you brought up, I mean, that is where, that separation and that recognition of when that comes up, the armor starts to build up, as Brene Brown talks about. And it's
Oh,
like
my Lord.
catching that and being aware of that. And so yeah, I think it's wild because just even reflecting back on that question, even like a year ago, whatever, I probably would not have been able to get anywhere near as deep as I am now. And it's like only because I'm continuing to show up, I'm continuing to do the work, and I'm like, whoa, it goes way deep. And that's a good thing, and not to be afraid of it, because that's again where then I would start self-sabotaging without even being aware of it. So it's Yeah, that was that was 25 minutes, but boy, that was a long answer. I'm so curious. Like, what about you? Where have you noticed it, show up for you?
Well, Jen, you just went right to the root right off the bat. And I love that you went right. Like, do not pass go. Do not collect $200. It comes down to self-doubt. And
Why bother?
Why bother? Why talk about the presenting issues? And I could not agree with you more. And I'll be very honest, I hadn't thought of that as an answer. My answer is a little more surface level. It truly is. It's related to James Clear's book, Atomic Habits. I loved that book.
So good.
So good. And my greatest, and I'm not saying it's a bad book or it's surface level. I'm just saying Jen went right to it. So James Clear's book is fantastic. And one of the greatest things I got out of that book, I read it so long ago, but this still sticks with me, is we focus on what we don't want.
Yeah.
And it's okay. So here's my New Year's resolution, or here's the habit I don't want. I want to lose weight. I want to be skinny. I want to, the layer behind that, I want to like meet societal norms. I want to feel pretty, all the things. And I don't want to feel heavy. I don't know. I mean, maybe that's not a good example, but conversely, what works with habit change is focusing on what we do want. Mm-hmm. I do want to live long enough to see my grandkids, and therefore I know I need to be of a healthy weight. I know that I want to feel light on my feet, right? As opposed to, I don't want to feel this joint pain anymore. It's focusing head through the windshield and really focusing on what we want, And I never understood that. And what just amazes me, coaching session after coaching session, when I ask people a very simple question, well, what do you want?
Oh,
right. It's such a simple, powerful question. We don't think about what we want. I mean, so many of us are in reactive HR mode, and it's just, I don't want to be tired. I don't want to be anxious. I don't want to be ruminating, all those things. And the hack is answering the question, what do you want? Yeah. My clients will always first come up with, I don't want to be anxious. And I'm like, okay, great first start. Let's go next level. What do you want? And it's the same thing with creating habits. So you went deep and I went a little tactical, sort of tactical, but not really. It's all flowing as usual.
I love that so much because, it just reminds me, I'm a sappy romantic, and I just watched the movie, The Notebook, for like the third time. And in that movie,
you're not on your 30th? What do you mean third? You've got some catching up to do. I don't know what this third is.
I'll have to work on that. But my favorite scene is when Noah is asking, what is her name? Shoot. Well, when he's asking, what do you want? Right? Like, she's talking about her mom and her fiance and her
what
this and
do
that.
You want?
And he's so like, in her face about it, but yet it's absolutely exactly what she needed and what every one of us needed. When I was watching that movie for the third time, going on 30, that was exactly what came up for me was, what do we want? Right? Yes. This is the question every single one of us struggle with. And we need somebody, or we need something to really almost push us against a wall and say, what do you want? Right? What do you value? And these are the questions that I think, and we'll get into it more, because that's where I'm like, you want to build healthy habits? Know thyself. know thyself. And then you will find that way. But if you don't know thyself, then that's what it is. We're serving others. We're confused, trying to think that we're doing it for all these different reasons that aren't actually true.
Ooh, so good. That's what I'm watching tonight.
For 31?
Yeah. We're going 31. And I'm sorry, this is really inappropriate, and I'm so going to say it. When you said, when you're pushed up against the wall, when Noah's like, what do you want? Then my mind goes to the sex scene where they are up against the wall. Sorry. I mean, and I'm like, you're having dirty thoughts during a podcast recording. What's your problem? Anyway, But also, I feel as though a lot of us do change our habits when we do feel as though we've bottomed out or our back's up against the wall, also related. And I find that so interesting. I know we talked about that on previous podcasts. And I feel like, I personally, yesterday's a great example of that. I had to almost hit rock bottom and get triggered and be an emotional freaking basket case and losing my shit. I mean, that's how it really, really felt. I was losing my shit. And that is what sparked me to create a healthy habit of get back into therapy.
Yeah.
Isn't that wild? Do you feel like you have to have your back up against the wall and there's nowhere else to go? Or do you not have to go to that depth?
I've had to go to that depth. And it's funny because I've tried to take shortcuts, and I've really, really tried to take shortcuts. and at the end of the day, and where I've made the greatest progress has been ultimately where I've had to have the biggest, brutal honesty moment. And a lot of that is like facing the worst kind of shame, what you had talked
Oh
about
my God.
yesterday.
Yes.
It's so easy sometimes when these situations happen, right? And we can catch it and recognize, oh, you know what? I was kind of a brat to my friends. I'm going to go and we end up getting in this action mode, which action can be really great, right? Keeping momentum moving can be really great. But if we're missing sometimes this core piece around what really triggered us in the first place, what was the shame? What was the doubt? What was it that really triggered it? Because if we're just then kind of brushing it off and moving on, that's great. That's good, but it really then misses such an opportunity, and that's scary as shit. Right? That's really where it gets scary, because we have to like face some dark stuff around and what created this in the first place. And so I hate to it's like good news, bad news, but good news, bad news is really about like, it does have to like go to a dark place, because there is dark, and we're balanced, humans, we have good and we have dark, we have good, bad, light, dark, right? And so in order to really be able to like progress and move forward, I think we have to be really honest and own that darkness. And that's where like the anger coming out yesterday, I'm like, go get it. Right? Because having that release of that darkness is really important, and so many people don't do it. And that's why you see more and more different kinds of tools and activities where people rage release that I went to a few months ago. Remember that was so much fun, because
oh my God, I need to go.
pulled some stuff out of me that I did not know that I needed to come out. And so I'm seeing that more and more, and I love it, because then it's just owning our emotions, owning that they're just fine, that they're not a problem, that they're a part of who we are. And those triggers, those traumas that are underneath it, if we're not actually like being like truthful about what that really is, what kind of like deep hurt might be beyond that, then it's going to continue to find its way back. Right. What is that? The saying, right? Something about repeating. Anyway, I mean, it won't go away until we actually face it. So
what we resist persists.
That's it. That's it,
one of them.
That's what I was thinking of.
I was actually cooking last night. Doesn't happen very often, making orzo. And I'm just watching, because of course I'm standing there hungry, staring at the water, waiting for it to boil, because that's the kind of person I am. And I just, when the bubbles start to come up, that's the visual I just had of that anger coming up, right? And it's just going to keep going and going. I don't know. You explode unless you figure out some healthy habits for that anger. And feeling our feelings is like all the thing. And what does that actually mean? I don't know. I don't know. I bet you know. So I want to come back to that, but I want to hear more, because you started going down a path of kind of moving forward. And I would love for you to share with our viewers and our listeners what does need to happen to create a healthy habit. What do our viewers or listeners need to understand needs to happen to create a healthy habit? I'm just going to add
Yeah.
more words.
I'm trying to remember if it was James Clear or who it was that I read about habits, and what they talked about is until you can truly like ground your habit in with your identity,
Yeah.
you're always going to be like it's always going to feel forced. And your identity is really the key to this. In any sort of habit or any sort of change we want to make in our lives, we have to actually like
Whoa.
truly believe that it's going to be a part of who we're becoming. And that, one of the things that you and I know about coaching is once you've identified who it is that you are becoming or want to become, and starting to act and engage in that sort of behavior of what that person can be today, that's where it's everything. And so, for so many people, I think, who, have like these dreams of wanting to make these different changes, it really truly starts within themselves, and creating that identity, and just really believing in that identity, regardless of what your current state is. And it's hard, and it's different, and it's new for a lot of people. And so, for those who are not familiar with it, they might be listening or watching right now going, what the is she talking about? Right. And so that's kind of the tricky part of all of this, is like, trying to sell something. It's like this magic elixir that we're trying to sell based on not actually seeing the results yet. But the thing that I offer the most is that around, our identity is, essentially it's everything. And so until we can really start kind of grounding into, what do we value? What do we want? What is important to us? Start there. It doesn't have to be big and grand and this big thing. It can really just start with some simple daily prompts of questions that we can ask ourselves to try to explore who we really are. So I feel like that was a rant.
No, it wasn't a rant. And I think, by the way, I feel like this is therapy because you have said so many things that have given me so many ahas. So I'm going to drive the points home for our listeners. Going back to the first question where you went right to the root of self-doubt. And when I think about what happened for me yesterday, it does come down to self-doubt. And I may start crying because I doubt that I'm a good person sometimes. I doubt that my core is filled with love, because I just sometimes feel like I'm a horrible human being. Mm-hmm. I doubt that I'm filled with love, because that was the feedback I was given from a family member. And fast forwarding to the question I just asked, and your amazing answer of you have to know who you are and it's in your identity. Mm-hmm. When I choose the identity of that might be true. You might be a bad person. You might be filled with vitriol. You're a bad human. You're a bad sister, whatever it is. And I go down that route of believing that. I mean, that's where my shitstorm started. And when I choose, okay, Kath, what do you want? And what do you want to believe about yourself? What is true about yourself? Who do you want to be living into? Mm-hmm. I always envision a Care Bear.
Okay, what color?
Orange just came up, and so did yellow.
Okay.
And just that I want to beam out love into this world. And I just want it to radiate from within, and it's true, and nothing's going to stop it. And I want people to see my sunshine. And when I think about that, I smile, I'm calm, and I'm happy, and I'm filled with love. And there's so much evidence that I am that person. But when I start to question it, that's when, I mean, honestly, my unhealthy habits start to come out. All the negative self-talk, that's an unhealthy habit. The rumination, that's an unhealthy habit. The lack of sleep, unhealthy habit. Mm-hmm. I've also been oversleeping, also another unhealthy habit. I want to get out of bed. Like all these things, all these signals. And I'm like, I'm fine. It's not fine. Not fine.
And we've all been there, So,
yeah.
for you, when you see kind of where you're at now, knowing,
Yeah.
even yesterday, the initiative that you took, what else do you see in terms of, and how you're going to be shifting this around and starting to build some healthier habits? What does that look like for you?
It's so funny because my original answer to this question was slow steps. And there's a book called Tiny Habits. And
Oh,
yeah, I love that one too. And I believe in slow steps. And if you think about what I just shared, the smallest step, I found a new therapist and I made an appointment.
yeah.
That small step, I swear on my life, I felt better. And those small steps, there's a Lao, I don't remember his name. Oh gosh, I'm going to butcher it, but it takes one step to yield 1,000 steps. I'm totally going to butcher it. But one phrase I do like to use is small hinges swing big doors. And it's true. These tiny hinges like open up the world of possibility. And I think that is critical in habit change and creating healthy habits, because if we go too big too fast, it's like, I'm going to starve myself for 3 days and go on this juice cleanse. And okay, you may drop like, I don't know, 10 pounds of water weight, but it's not the right approach. It's too big, too fast. And it's the small incremental steps yield those big long-term actual fixes versus that short fix, which is what any diet trend actually is. And I may get canceled for saying that, but it's the truth.
Yeah.
People are after your money. It's true.
Yeah, it's definitely true. And, it's so alluring, right? It can be so
alluring.
And yet, the truth of the matter is that, that is going to be short lived if it doesn't also get followed up by truly, aligning with the values and everything else that we've been talking about today. So yeah, I love that.
Yeah. So I want to know, because I've been talking a lot about me, I want to know an example that you've had in succeeding in developing a healthy habit.
Oh my gosh. For me, it's been around my addictions and really becoming so much more okay with allowing, the discomfort. And, for years and years, it was alcohol and really truly believing that, gosh, it's so wild, like I truly believed. I grew up in poverty, and, neither of my parents, had college degrees. And so I believed that I needed to be a success, that I needed to be a financial success. I had this deep belief within myself, so much so that it really sacrificed my availability to my family. And instead, my focus was on career. My focus was on getting the MBA. My focus was on, growth up the corporate ladder to show those men, whatever, all of that kind of, build. And with that came then this pressure of, that buildup of, everything that I wasn't addressing, throughout, building life. And then, getting off each day and believing that then, this release of, a drink or two, then I'll be more relaxed with my family. I won't be so cranky and so whatever. I completely misled myself into believing that actually made me a better person in the evenings with my family, because I was lethargic, right? I wasn't like a dirty, awful drunk. I tended to just be there laying on the couch and just zoning out. And then I would, be goofy, and I would have some, goofy fun. So then I perpetuated this lie for years and years.
Wow.
That was something that was working for me. And it really, truly wasn't until I, moved away from it. And in a couple of days, it'll be 4 months, and I'm so excited about that.
Yes.
And with that, over the years, I've also, struggled with marijuana, and I've struggled with other things too when it comes to addictions. And so I think just addictions itself is something that I really have had to work a lot on, and therapy has helped a lot on. I didn't realize this episode was going to be so much about
I
go get
know.
a therapist.
Usually we're like, get coaching. Today's like, go get some therapy.
I'm like, this is so interesting. But it really, like, when it came down to like recognizing what that numbing was all about, and how I really have been able to break free of that, because I've then allowed myself to be okay with whatever shame I might have felt during the day, whatever embarrassment, whatever discomfort came up for me. And instead of like feeling like I had to push that aside and hide it and whatever, I was just with it. And wow, it's wild how much then more effective I am in, every every area of my life, because I'm allowing that. But it's taken quite a while, and it's still
Yeah.
not perfect. I mean, 4 months is not a long time for anyone who's who's dealt with alcoholism or anything else. And so it's going to be a long road continuing, but it's one that I'm really proud of, and one that I think for anybody who struggles with any kind of addiction or any kind of numbing or any kind of like pushing away, dealing with negative emotions and all of that, I think
Yeah.
we can all relate to this, of like how can we manage it all, and instead of trying to feel like we have to find a fix, it's really about just allowing what is, and not feeling like we have to fight it, and just accept it. And that's a painful thing to go through. And then on the other side of that is really, really beautiful. And it's been a journey. It's been a journey for me. So
Yeah.
flipping
And
that
you did
on,
it.
what's
Yeah.
that?
And you did it. I
I
mean, you
am
have
doing it.
succeeded
Yeah, every day.
and isn't that interesting? Every day. Is it the incremental small steps? I mean, do you really chunk it down every day
Yeah.
for you? That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. That's so
I
interesting.
absolutely do. Like I grew up in a family of addiction. I
Yeah,
think
me too.
it comes up in me almost every day, and some trigger, or some yearning, or some desire in some way. And so it's not always an alcohol thing, but I just have become much more conscious of like these different triggers that cue desires that are causing me to want to maybe numb, or
Yeah.
not be fully present. And so, yeah, it's going to be a lifelong thing, I'm sure. And, being a part, I never thought I was going to be a part of something like AA, but
Right.
that has been something that's been just a huge gift for me, that I've joined in the last couple of months. And I'm like, okay, now I see now where I'm supposed to be a part of something else, and actually be able to give back in service to other people who struggle as well. So that's a big shift for me as well, that I recognize, in order for me to truly like continue with my recovery, I'll have to figure out how I can best give back. Well, what about you? Like, where do you?
I just need to honor everything you said with the pause.
Aw.
I think just really taking in what you said and shared, and your vulnerability and your strength and your willingness to share, that's really, I know, is going to change at least one person's life. So thank you. That was a powerful share. So happy for you.
Thank you. Thank you. I am
Yeah.
too. It's been quite a freaking ride. And one that I'm so grateful we can share in so many ways.
Yeah.
It's been one thing that I think has caused, it's like trauma bonding. We are bonded forever
Yeah.
in something that we have really been, pushing through. But your journey has been so different too, because I
Yeah.
think, it's been so amazing, where you've just been like, I'm done. I'm done with this. This no longer serves me. And I think, so for me, I'm so envious of that, and so curious, like, how does
Well,
that?
and I'm flashing back to okay, let me get something else out first, because for our listeners, you mentioned self-sabotaging a little bit ago, and I heard the coolest, easiest way to define the difference between a bad habit and a good habit. So for any listener or any viewer out there who's thinking, okay, well, gosh, I drink, what's a bad habit? Is it 2 glasses of wine? Is it 3 glasses? What's a bad habit? And my answer is, it's self-sabotage with any habit when there's a negative consequence on the end.
Oh, yes.
The most succinct definition I have ever heard. And I was like, I'm sharing that one. So I've been like doing that on social media for 2 years now because it's so good. Yeah. So Jen, for me, it's very much related to HR as well. Employee parties. I have social anxiety. I'm an introvert. I needed to have drinks before I even showed up to the employee party. And when I was in my 20s, it's how I would go out and bond with staff. I mean, I live in a community. We'd go out dancing. We'd go out drinking, all the things. If a partner in the firm where I worked for 12 years was having an employee relations issue, he'd be like, martini down the street, 5 o'clock. Very much drinking culture. I mean, every organization I've worked in, drinking was a part of the organizational culture. So I didn't see a problem with it until there was a negative consequence on the end. And for me, it was an absolute, I really slowed down my drinking. I thought everything was fine. I drank very infrequently, but when I did, I got the Olympic gold. Nobody came close. It was like those swimming last night, the women's swimming. I'm not even sure if that's her name. She's like a pool length in front of the second person. That was me drinking. Like, oh yeah. I'd be like, you're on 1 margarita. I've had 4. Like, catch up. Oh, you can. I was a hot mess. But yeah, long story short, kind of hit rock bottom, like what we've been talking about. My partner, we live in a very rural area. And instead of calling my partner and saying, I'm too drunk to come home, I'm not coming home. He thought I was dead on the side of the road for an entire night because I couldn't answer my phone because I was passed out. I was safe. I was passed out.
Yeah.
And it scared him so much that I woke up when we spoke the next morning, I was like, and I'm done. And that was it for me. And I did go to some AA meetings, and I come from a lineage of alcoholics. I have a question for you, and I'm dying to ask it, so I'm just going to do it. When AA talks about being powerless over alcohol, what does that mean? Good
question. I'm still working on the steps, but the way that I have interpreted it to mean is that it is something that ultimately I have come to a deep realization about, that I have not been able to find a way to control, and that, I have to take that ownership and recognize, and so I think that that's kind of the way I interpret it. And if I end up finding a different interpretation or if anyone's listening or watching that has a different interpretation, I'd love to know.
I love that, because that's taking accountability for your relationship with alcohol.
Yeah.
I am powerless. When I went to my couple of AA meetings, I was like, this is not for me. It was because of that exact statement. I was like,
I get it.
I don't want to say I'm powerless. I feel like I'm a powerful woman.
Yes.
And so I got tripped, and anybody who knows me knows I'm super literal. Like, I am Amelia Bedelia. If somebody, I just am. So if someone says you are powerless, I'm sort of like, no, I'm not. Don't ever
tell me who I am.
No, I'm not. I can do this. I don't need to tell myself I'm not powerless to anything. So I got tripped up on that. So thank you. That actually really helps me. And that's interesting. Maybe I'm struggling with my accountability. So yeah, I'm gonna think about that. Thank you. I've literally been like, like that.
That's really, really funny, because I remember before I even started reading the books that I'm reading, that was one that stood out to me too. And I was like, what is that about? I'm empowered. I got, so there was definitely an immediate reaction that came up for me. And then the more that I did read about it and the more that it talked about just really kind of an internal, like, awareness and accountability on, what truly has been true for me. It may not be for everybody, but for me, that I think settled it for me. I was like, okay, I can see that
Yeah.
clearly, especially when I was drinking a boxed wine on Thanksgiving and, as things got to their worst. I mean, recognizing when it takes you to that point where you literally are like proud of the gold medal winning performance of, getting rock bottom drunk. You're like, okay, wait a minute. I think there's a problem.
Wait a second here. This is not something I should be bragging about and being proud of that gold medal. I mean, you're 49 years old. Let's rethink this one.
Yeah.
Well, on the flip side, and we all know that failure is not a bad word. I mean, have you ever experienced failure when trying to develop a new healthy habit?
Absolutely. I mean, when it comes to just the alcohol or anything, when I am trying to really become more in tune with, going back to like what it is we want. And, that's been, I've talked, in different episodes before of like my journey of really getting to a point in my career where I'm not going to settle. I am not ever going to settle again for the person I report to. I'm never, ever going to settle again to the company I work for. That took years and years and years of building healthy habits around my worth, around my value, like all of those things. And it's like, I'm not perfect. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm not perfect, but I deserve, respect. I deserve, especially when it's going to be something that's going to be reciprocated, right? I'm not here to disrespect you. So when we get back to the platinum rule, it's like recognizing what it is I truly need and want for myself. And that has been something that has just profoundly changed my life because
Wow.
I recognize that I still have moments of self-sabotage that are sneaking in and that find their ways. I mean, just this week, I had a situation where after the fact, I was like, what the frick? What was that showed up? Right? It was like I was triggered and I was snappy with a manager. And, afterwards, it was really because they called me out on something that I wasn't prepared to be called out for. And so that natural, anger or frustration or whatever built up in me and recognizing that that's fine, that's okay. That's still human. That's still going to happen.
Yeah.
And just being okay with that and continuing to move forward. But I think truly, like, it's really for me come down to, what this episode's been so badass because it's really like recognizing what truly matters and then just being so diligent and intentional about that, regardless of, what little bumps and stumbles you're going to have, because I know very, very few people that can say what I said just a little bit ago about I will not compromise at all. And that is wild to me that I feel like I'm in a rare, in a rare place in that way. And it's like, and at the same time, that's my life's mission now. I'm like, what? We're not all like not compromising on this stuff. And yeah, no, we're not, because deep down, we don't think we're worth it. And
Coming
that's
back to the self-doubt.
It does.
For everyone.
It really, really does. And the more that I've been able to kind of ground in and just be very clear about that for myself, the more I can just speak to it, not from like a overly confident way. I mean, if that's how you take it out there, I'm not for everybody. I understand that. But at the same time, I also really am clear for myself. And I know that that does resonate with some. So yeah, that's my story and I'm sticking to it. What about
I
you?
love that story.
Thank you. What about you? Like where have you kind of really found that you are, remind me of the word of the question.
Oh, just failing?
Oh, failing. Okay, so failing and
Yeah.
how.
It's funny because my failure, my original answer, I'm throwing it out the window. My current failure with my healthy habits, you're going to love this. I have for years, I wake up and I meditate. Wake up, meditate, wake up, meditate. The last couple of weeks, and I've been traveling, I've been on the road, I'm not at home, and I'm now putting this together as the words are quite literally coming out of my mouth. Guess who's been scrolling on her phone when she wakes up?
Yeah.
Instead of, like, I have replaced meditation with scrolling. I know the psychology that I'm seeking a dopamine hit. I get it all. I understand it. And I'll reach over and be like, oh, you going for dopamine? I'm like having a party in my head, laughing about my bad habit that I picked up. And Jen, I kid you not, on Sunday, it was an hour and 15 minutes because I know what time my alarm goes off and I know what time I'm getting out of bed. This morning, it was 6:15, alarm went off, got out of bed at 6:45. I spent 30 minutes chasing dopamine instead of calming my brain and going to the healthy habit. But here's what I also know to be true about healthy habits, because I have built up that healthy habit of morning meditation, it comes back like that.
Mm-hmm.
It is like riding a bike.
Yeah.
So tonight the phone will stay up here, charging up here, and I will use an old school alarm clock downstairs, and that it is as easy as that for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I'm sure I could do the work to think back to when this actually started, but pretty sure it's been around my travel schedule. And I know a lot of our listeners do a lot of traveling for work. And yeah, interesting. And another fail. This is interesting. I eat a lot of sugar. I always have. And my friends call me Fryabetes instead of diabetes. Like, my last name's Fry. They call me Fryabetes because I eat so much sugar. And my sugar intake since stopping drinking alcohol, through the roof. And listen to this excuse.
This girl too.
Really?
Yes.
Oh my God. It's been like everything they say is true. Right? And then recently I'm like, okay, you're coming upon your year of not drinking. That's when you're going to tackle your bad sugar consumption habit. And honestly, that's an excuse. I could start tomorrow. And I've been indulging in excuses to indulge in my self-sabotage. And it is ruining my gut. The sugar is literally ruining my gut. It's sending me into spike mode. It doesn't allow me to be the best version of myself when I'm with my clients. So I know it's something I need to do. And there are worse things out there. I get it. And I know I'm not powerless over sugar. I'm going to get it.
I am right there with you. I don't know.
Let's do it together.
I don't know if I'm ready.
Okay, we don't have to be ready. I mean, my year's coming up.
Yeah, with breaking this leg, I'm like, I might need a Twix after this.
Yeah, maybe I said this on the podcast. Mine's Reese cups, and I'm not talking like the Justin's healthy Reese cups. I'm talking good old fashioned, whoever, Hershey. I don't know who makes Reese cups, but the bad ones.
Yeah. No, I'm all about the bad stuff too. Like Twix and 100 grand.
Stop it. The caramel.
Oh, the caramel. I love the caramel.
Okay, I'm going to do everything I can not to go buy a Reese cup tonight. Okay, so you already touched on this next question that I know a lot of our listeners and viewers are waiting for. You started touching upon how you say no, how you started standing up for yourself. Mm-hmm. And because that does require us sometimes, not always, to say no to other people. So Jen, how do you say no at work and in life to things that don't serve you? And to people. How do you say no to people? We are so bad at this in HR.
Yeah.
So bad. We are people pleasers, and we say yes when we mean no all the time. Period.
All of that. All of that. Yeah, I think that's where it starts, is to stop, stop pleasing others and really, going back to what we've been talking about this whole episode of like knowing ourselves and then really having the courage to take action from that place. And it's that simple and it's that hard. Right? Because it means letting people down. It means discouraging people. It means pissing some people off. And that might mean family and that might mean work. And that it's such a wild place to be, especially when we are starting to come to this place of recognizing that we haven't actually been truthful to ourselves around what that is, about what we really want, about what's important. And when we start actually speaking up, it's not going to go well all the time, right? It's not going to be fully embraced. You're not going to have people like, yay, like you're at the Olympics and everyone's like, yeah, she's standing up for herself. That's amazing. She's setting boundaries.
Yeah, it's kind of like, what the fuck? Who is this person?
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah. And so I
Yeah.
think, to get to that place of one, recognizing that we are people pleasing, to recognize that we are putting ourselves in positions that aren't really, true to what it is we really value or want. And then two, what is that, right? What do we value and want? And then three, having that courage to do it, right? Whatever that is. And so, in the course of, my professional, especially career around like now not compromising, that's required a lot of me. And so luckily I've had 20 plus different jobs in my HR career. So I've built up a tolerance of being okay with that, to be okay with whatever, dissatisfaction that might come from others, because you know what, it doesn't matter. What truly matters then is what matters within myself. But doing that personally, that's where I'm, I get really vulnerable right now. I'm struggling. I have a 16-year-old. It's really challenging. I have a 24-year-old. It's challenging. My spouse has been out of work 9 months now. It's challenging.
Yeah.
So life is lifing in ways right now that it doesn't always work, quite perfectly in that way. But I'm continuing to want to do my best to be authentic and true to myself, and then ultimately try to love on and be there for others. But it has included shifting of a lot of really important relationships in my life over the last few years. So, that answer is a little messy, but yet like I truly believe that where it's taking me is the direction of my truth, because now I know it aligns with what I truly want. Now I know it aligns with what I truly value. And I would not have been able to say that 2 years ago. So yeah.
So good. So good, Jen.
So vulnerable. I'm like just breaking in hives right now.
I mean, then get the cortisone or calamine out and take care of that itch, because you, again, had a very big impact on a lot of people out there. Like that level of honesty, it's hard.
So
when
hard.
we, especially in our profession, it's just, we're expected to say yes. We've been socialized to believe that way. Our position, oftentimes our industry, I guess, the HR industry, we're yes, we'll stay late. Yes, I'll take that call on the weekends. Yes, I'll move my schedule around to accommodate yours. Yes, because I'm in the business of people. And we're people pleasers. We tend to be people pleasers, I feel like. HR professionals do, for sure. For sure. And it's definitely been a lifelong struggle. One of my hacks is to say yes to what is important, right? So when we, if somebody says, hey, can we reschedule this meeting? It's, I actually can't, because I have a meeting right afterwards and it is absolutely aligned with the board's number one, whatever that is. I mean, say yes to what is most important. Say yes to the needle mover. So that always helps me know in the back of my own mind, what am I saying yes to? So I almost pivoted a little bit. But I have a really good example of saying no. You're not going to believe this one. I'll try and make it. I'm like going into story hour today. And so please stop me if I've already shared this. Like, please stop me if I've shared this with you.
Okay.
I was down working with a client. I was in the final interviewing round with a global company to do their mission, vision, values. Okay. So I'd gone through several interviews, and throughout that process, they had rescheduled on me several times.
Oh my goodness.
Okay. And I was like, no problem. Okay. Because truly, when they rescheduled, I had flexibility and it was fine. It was a Wednesday. I believe it was a Wednesday. I have been working all day. I'm remote. I am full. When I am with a consulting client, they get 110% of me from dusk to dawn. Like I am there with them. They're paying me big money and I'm there and I'm diligent and I'm time blocking and I am all with them. And I got back to my hotel room and I'm supposed to be presenting to the executive team or whatever language they use in their organization. The following morning, I believe at 9 a.m. Mountain Time. And I got a text saying, can we move you to 7 a.m.?
Oh.
And if I'm being really honest, because I was so committed to my client, I hadn't started my PowerPoint. I hadn't started the presentation. And please know I can bust out a PowerPoint in 10 minutes. It would not have taken me long. I already knew I've been working it through in my head, what I was going to present. But there was something about it. I would have to rearrange my whole workday with my existing client who I was there in person. I had traveled. They were putting me up in a hotel room. And I said no. And you'll love this, not brutal honesty. It took me so long to write the text back. I wrote it, rewrote it. It was so, I knew I had to say no. I had to stand up for myself. And quite frankly, like, I just didn't want to put my client out. So I was saying yes to my client and I was saying no to a private equity firm. And this work could have rippled out so easily. If you're a consultant, if you're an HR consultant out there, you know how much work goes into marketing and building relationships. And this would have been taken all of that out. Mm-hmm. I mean, I just would have had work coming out of my ears. And I said, no, thank you. Let's just call a spade a spade. I need to commit. I truly did not feel like I had the flexibility. And I said, I just do not have the ability to flex tomorrow. Thank you so much for the opportunity. And then the text came back of, oh my God, never mind. We can stay. It's just the new CEO won't be there and some of the other people won't be there. And yeah, I don't know what her tone was, right? I have no idea. And I still said no.
Oh my goodness.
And as a consultant, it's kind of a bad move. You take the work when it comes in, right? Especially if there's an alignment. And I loved the people that I already met with in the organization. The very, very next day, I woke up to a request through my website saying, we need mediation services ASAP. And I called them and I got the job. It wasn't this 4-round interviewing process with a million schedules. I got the job. I started the work. I did a week-long mediation and I probably netted twice as much as I would have with the initial work I was going to do on the East Coast. So financially for my business, it was a really good move. But the best part of the story is it was one of the most proud moments of my professional career. I'm so proud of the work I got to do through that mediation. I really helped a community that was hurting. And I believe in God and the universe, whatever you want to throw at it. But I believe that was me. That was God saying, no, you're on the right path. Stand tall for yourself. Say no when it doesn't feel right. And the yeses will come. So I just wanted to share that. It was fun.
Oh my gosh. That's amazing.
Cool. Did I tell you that already?
I don't think so.
Okay.
No, and if you did, it would have been very abbreviated. So that was, gosh, what a beautiful way of like really listening to yourself and honoring yourself. And that's what's so hard for so many to do because of that pull, especially for people who are self-employed and entrepreneurs and things like that, which, is outside of a lot of people listening to this, but it's still that, just that pull of even being in the 9-to-5 roles and feeling like we always have to.
Oh my God.
The same idea. So Oh man, I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh yeah. It was a big one. And I'm telling you, it took me forever to send that text. So I'm not saying it's easy. And I haven't heard back from the woman. And I have to be okay with that.
Yeah.
I have to be okay that she's not
Absolutely.
okay with me. And I really am, because the organization I did a mediation for, they're already hiring me for more work. So I'm totally
Nice.
okay with it. And I just know that I was meant to work with the client that I actually ended up with. I know
Yeah.
that in my heart, because
Yeah.
I love that. I mean, I literally am like, I love you guys. We're weird in Colorado sometimes. Okay. Jen, just to wrap it up, do you have one tidbit, one bit of advice that you just must share with our viewers and our listeners of how they can start to develop healthy habits?
Hmm. I'll sound a bit like a broken record, but it'll be a little bit of a different variation is build your foundation.
Ooh,
Build your foundation. So by building your foundation, we become more clear about, all the things that we want and desire and need and all of that. And we can then build from a place of being grounded, right? So there was this
mm,
analogy that I heard recently about, trying to build from, from a tree that is not, that is not stable, right? And it's only just going to start,
yeah.
falling over from the weight. And I think that we really need to have that same approach with ourselves and, our
Mm,
professional and personal, and yet very, very few of us were ever really grew up that way. Right. We have no concept of what that really is like. Even when I talk about it, we're like, what does that really mean? Right. We talk about like identifying what we want and all of that. It all kind of then comes down to like being very clear about ourselves. And so we can then build this foundation within ourselves. And it sounds so freaking simple, right? Like it seems so simple. And yet it is everything.
yep.
It's everything. And I believe that so fully because that's for me where I've truly learned to fall in love with myself.
Oh,
And that is so, I mean, nobody can take that away from me. Not the family who still doesn't talk to me, nobody. And that is everything to me. So yeah, build your foundation, define your foundation, build your foundation, and then don't let anybody shake you from that foundation.
mm.
What about
So
you, darling?
I just took some notes, and when I start my new therapist on Monday, I'm going to say, I once heard from this wise woman that I need to build a strong foundation, and I need you to help me do that.
She'll be
Serious.
like, let's get to work.
She's like, let's go. Let's get the, I don't even know the tools. I don't even know, like, when it comes to brick and mortar. But to add to that, when you're creating and building your foundation, remember it's progress, not perfection. I think a lot of us in HR tend to be those
Amen.
perfectionists. Yes. And I stole that from Optavia. Both of my sisters were health coaches with this diet company. Used to be Medifast. Now it's
Oh,
pitched
what
as
a
Optavia.
fast.
Medifast
I
is now
remember that.
Optavia. So any listeners who use Optavia, same company as Medifast, right? I mean, they're just repurposing and rebranding. Progress, not perfection. And I think those are really, really useful and powerful words, because flashing back to our childhood is when we all, for those of us who learned how to ride a bike, you didn't try it once, fall off, and leave it on the ground. You kept trying. And
Mhm.
that led to that habit, for most of, like, a healthy habit of movement and riding that bike and getting to where you wanted to be. Didn't even think about that one. So yeah, progress, not perfection. Give yourself grace.
Love it.
Love it.
Oh,
Jen, so
what?
good today.
What a conversation.
I mean, woo! I love this one. And personally, I really did. I loved it. Jen, thank you. You always bring out, you make me really think. And I hadn't thought about my self-doubt that informed what happened for me yesterday, and the root is self-doubt. So thank you. I
Thank
got to that
you.
pretty quickly today. I hadn't thought about that. So thank you. Really helpful. And I just want to thank all of our listeners. If you loved this episode, please share it. Please star it. I don't even know the things you do, but definitely
Read
rate it, review
it.
our podcast.
Love
Help us.
it.
Yeah. I mean, help us spread the love because we could go global with your help. So we would love for you to join our movement, and let's continue to absolutely remember that every day is a great day to thrive and shine in HR. We'll see you next week.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.